one more again. True indeed. Welcome, 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 man. AGD. You know I like to lead out with that. Another great day, right? Plenty of opportunities to spread peace, love, respect, foundations exhibited in this new paradigm, right? And that's what we're here to do. Build the foundation to the new paradigm, worldwide movement, peace, love, respect. All right, man. I love you all, and I thank you for helping me to grow the movement. Please like, share, subscribe, and click the notification button, right? Got to make sure we grow the algorithm in our favor, get this pumping out to more and more folks. So please do those things: like, share, subscribe, and click the notification button. Of course, I grow the worldwide movement, peace, love, respect, through my creative works. Um, two books currently on Amazon, both in paperback and ebook form. You can get either one. Actually, the first book I've also narrated into an audio book that is available on audible.com. It also happens to be a part of the National Library of Congress as an audio book through the Library of Accessible Media. So please check both of those books out. Please purchase both of those books. They're very affordable, just $14, right? So my YouTube channel is now up to close to 800 videos in the library, right? Not quite sure at what point, but pretty soon we're going to have to cap that off. Podcasts, both on my YouTube channel as well as my rumble.com channel, right? Lectures, interviews, my nightly news show, Big King's Nightly News Takes. So all my creative works geared toward growing the worldwide movement, peace, love, respect. Of course, my musical album, they're on my YouTube channel and most streaming platforms, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, etc. Soon be releasing the new album. Look for that. All right, folks. So I thank you yet again for joining me on this episode of Big King's Nightly News Takes. I mentioned that soon we are going to be having some format changes, improvements in my eyes. I am going to start either via split screen or live in person, having a guest. I know, it's pretty cool, right? It'll be someone that will have an interesting perspective on the topic that'll be covered for that week. And I think you all will be very pleased. I'll be securing some really interesting guests. But that's what we're moving toward next, right? Maybe as soon as next week's episode. Not exactly sure about that. But yeah, we're we're um, we're we're going to be having some significant changes, improvements again, in my opinion. So I need you folks to be chiming in to let me know what you think about it. That is the other thing we're going to be getting back to certainly next week and beyond, is we're going to have much more interaction in the chat, right, at the chat level, simply because of the equipment availability. I have been doing a lot of these, if not all of them, these episodes off of my cell phone, right, which has been a slightly limited experience. But we keep on rolling, man. You know how we do it. Just like a fight with this button, we gonna keep on rolling till we get it done. True indeed. So, that's the nature of paradigm shift, of the nature of our magnificent evolution has been our adaptivity, right? Our ability to adapt is one of the hallmarks of human beings evolution, which I'm rolling right into today's discussion, right? As we're talking about where we do, first of all, the fact that unfortunately most folks don't grasp, and I could be wrong. I do feel that this is rapidly changing, but most folks don't grasp the profundity of the fact that humanity is taking an actual evolutionary leap into higher consciousness. You understand how profound that is, right? We're not talking about something that is a mundane change or shift. This is an evolutionary jump of the entire species into a higher consciousness. Um, so what we've seen and what you'll find if you just study history even, right, is that change always tends to be the result, right? But before you get to the result, you need to go through or move through some form of a catalyst, something that ignites, sparks, and facilitates change, right? And that catalyst you might even look to as the spark, right? Often in changes and in evolution in humanity, it always or tends to begin with a few, right? Even sometimes a one, right? One or few often provide the spark that ignites change in the many. Now, with that, there's always a course, right? That individual or that small group of a few often has to endure a set of unique challenges, right? Those unique challenges, number one, are always disbelief, right? Um, think about how many things we have an example of in humanity that have occurred, that we know factually have occurred, but yet we still perceive as impossible for the average human being to accomplish. Let me expound a little bit on what I mean by this. I've always been one who believes that if one human being can accomplish something, any human being can accomplish that thing. Um, of course, we have levels and various degrees of proficiency or expertise or art form, etc. But right, the same way I can walk, if you have the same appendages as a human being, you can walk as well, right? So we're speaking in a form of generalities, but in general, I do feel that that holds true. If one human being has the ability to do something, then just about every human being has at least that potential. Think about that. If one human being exhibits, even one human being exhibits a capability, then most, if not all, human beings at least have that potential. So, um, we have a great number of things that have been documented that many would say, oh, well, that's a one off or that is a isolated experience or example. But again, I lean on that. If it's been exhibited in one, the potential lies in many. And truly, those who are enlightened understand that. Certainly, the elite understand that, which is why they're so fearful of paradigm shift of the awakening, because if they see an awakening or at least one awakened or ascended individual, well, whoops, there goes the neighborhood, because there's the potential for it to be in many, if not all. And that's what we're dealing with. um, there are those of us who have awakened um, to exist in higher consciousness. Now, what does that look like? Many people might term it as fifth dimensional consciousness. I even have myself, right? Um, when really one escapes uh, in vibrational frequency, and not escapes, ascends, right, in vibrational frequency into, ascends out of 3D, 4D existence. Um, you would think, as we tend to think linearly, that it just okay. So after the fourth degree or fourth density or dimension, there's the fifth density or dimension, then the sixth, and the seventh, etc., etc. But it's not exactly like that, right? There are those um, thresholds, right? Remember, what separates uh, dimensions are thresholds of vibrational frequency, right? Usually, a dimension is a range, you might say, between those thresholds, right? From this vibrational frequency increased up to that vibrational frequency. Therein is a certain dimension within that state of resonance. Um, but when you ascend, at least in consciousness, beyond fourth dimensional confines or the fourth dimensional threshold, while you do perceive fifth dimensionality, you actually have begun to, you're sort of unshackled. You're now multidimensional, meaning that you have the ability not only to experience not just the fifth dimension, but higher dimensions as well at that point, right? Sixth, seventh, whatever. You can have those kind of experiences or perceptions. Um, and it is, you have to understand, your consciousness doesn't have physical form. So we have to sort of force ourselves to think of our consciousness in terms that are not confined by Newtonian physics, right? Um, and that's difficult for a lot of people because that's what has shaped the paradigm that we've existed in. And that's so that's understandable. All of this is we're all existing in this paradigm that is taught us and ingrained in us through layers and layers of indoctrination. These these levels of limitation, right? But again, I just wanted to expound on that a little bit. That once you ascend above or past fourth dimensional constraints, um, your perception grows to one of multidimensionality, where yes, you do experience fifth dimensionality, but you also experience beyond that. Or have the capability to experience beyond that. Another way that you are multidimensional is that you can experience more than one dimensional state of existence as one at once. There is a point, a state that you go through, and I've experienced this myself, that you become conscious of to to some degree. You become conscious of your own multidimensional states of existence. In other words, you actually become conscious of yourself existing in other dimensions. Okay. Um, and you start to sort of perceive yourself not in the linear terms in which we're typically accustomed to doing, but you start to perceive yourself in not a duplicitous way. What's the best way for me to say it? In a as a multifaceted being. That's probably the best and most accurate way to say it. You start to perceive yourself as a multifaceted, multidimensional being. Um, Now, that's not to be confused with giving an explanation of what your soul layer or your spirit is, right? Um, though your spirit is multidimensional as well. Uh, but that is to give you a little bit of a breakdown or explanation as to the change in perception one might experience when your consciousness ascends beyond the constraints or confines of a 4D, 3D perception of existence, right? Um, you quite literally begin to think differently. And I don't mean just about different things. Yes, you do begin to think about different things, perhaps, but your processing is different. For one, you tend to become much more observational, right? Particularly because you're perceiving now this entire existence, this 3D, 4D physical corporeal existence. You're perceiving it as the limited state of existence that it is, right? Which is not to belittle or diminish the importance of this state of existence, because it is very important, particularly for the purposes of spiritual maturation. Um, but it is to say that in multidimensional perception, you simply see beyond these confines. Naturally, you just think it beyond the confines. Like, um, I think the easiest way to describe the difference is that in multidimensionality, you naturally don't think in linear terms. Whereas in the paradigm we had all grown up and become accustomed to, just about all of our perception is in linear terms. We perceived almost everything in finite terms, right? When you are thinking in a fifth dimensional, or better described, a multidimensional, uh, uh, from that point of consciousness, you don't think of things in linear terms. Sometimes linear terms even escape you because you naturally perceive things and begin to observe things from a multidimensional, multifaceted perspective. It's just naturally. It wouldn't occur to you. It'd be like if you had the ability. You know how horses wear blinders, right? It'd be like if you had somebody just put blinders on you, but you had the ability to just take the blinders off and see a more panoramic view than you naturally would, right? Just naturally. The same thing occurs because you have the ability, or when you have the ability to perceive on a multi-dimensional level, it wouldn't occur to you to think on a linear level. Now, there may be some instances, situations, circumstances, scenarios, people, places, or things that may be a catalyst to cause you to think in such a way. Um, but number one, when you get to ascend to a certain level in your consciousness, those things become temporary stimuli, often very fleeting, right? When I say temporary, I mean it can be like, I feel people have even asked me, and I'm just saying this, I'm interrupting my own thought to give an example. We can find ourselves stagnated in a limited perception, right? Um, and limitations in perception are something that we can, dare I say, escape. Again, I'm back at that word. um, but we can transcend, might be a better way to state it. We can transcend a lot of these limitations in perception. We really can. Um, but again, we become accustomed to limiting ourselves. And that becomes ultimately the hallmark of our perception. Now, what do you mean by it's the hall? Okay, so I'm saying that when we purchase or partake in this existence, this 3D, 4D corporeal reality, just the nature of a physical existence or corporeal existence is that there are limits, right? Um, you the difference between simply thinking in finite terms or in infinite cyclical terms, even, right? Um, the difference in that, I think, is, or I feel like is often expressed um, in subtleties that are numerous. What I mean by that is, um, there may be changes or subtleties about or of a thing that could be difficult to perceive, right? Um, or there are those that even when you do perceive it, you realize there are multifaceted ways of perceiving it. And this is just indicative of what multidimensionality is, right? Folks, there are literally more dimensions than we can imagine, right? Aspects of existence than we can number. As multidimensional beings, again, we have the ability to experience, or the opportunity to experience, multidimensional uh, existence in a couple of ways. Again, there is um, a dimensional state that is multiple in perception, and then there's dimensional states that are strictly based on vibrational frequency thresholds, right? Which I guess essentially it all is. But anyway, let me not overcomplicate this. Um, Individually, for most, and collectively for just about all of us, we are again going through a profound change, right? Um, as they say, as I've heard people say, the shift is real, right? Um, I celebrate this personally, and many people do. Not everyone, but many people do. I think it is profound, and it is something that we must really process in a deep and intrinsic way what change looks like, what it feels like, and why change is even necessary. Like that word, we just kind of sling that word change out there, um, loosely a little bit. And like I would examine change as like, what is the causation of change? What is the spark of change, right? And this is particularly important at the individual level because it's often introspection that bears the fruit of change, right? Think about that. I mean, isn't it often through introspection and sort of taking a deeper look at yourself that you uncover what some people can or would identify as treasures of personal growth and development, right? Those are often the fruit of introspection, which ends up being the catalyst or the spark for change, right? Remember, all this, folks, is about awareness, right? Isn't that what consciousness is? Multiple states of awareness, right? Or varying degrees or depth of awareness. Remember, however you're looking at it, it's multidimensional. Human beings are magnificent indeed. Just to think about what we are individually as a creation, to be a soul being or light being, an energetic electromagnetic light being, having a physical human experience in these 3D, 4D corporeal bodies that act as our interface in this 3D, 4D corporeal physical density or state. This is incredibly profound. And for us to be so deeply engaged in the evolution of the consciousness, not only of individuals, but an entire species, the profundity cannot be underestimated or underexpressed. This is monumental, and we're right in the middle of it. Huh? This is monumental for humanity, and we're right in the middle of it. And I've noticed at least that we tend to take it as something mundane, when indeed it is magnificent and profound. All right. Well, folks, dare I say, we have to continue to dive deep, right, into this paradigm shift and all of its implications, right? Numerous they are indeed. Um, it's just not something that we can cover in one sitting or conversation. Um, but I'm excited about the changes ahead as we not only personally, I'm not just talking about the podcast and all that. I'm talking about entering into higher states of this ascension process, right? Which I find myself um, excited to be doing. But where we're headed collectively on various levels, it's exciting. If I do say so myself, it is exciting indeed where we're headed. Um, think about some of the profound things that are coming into light. What about the whole disclosure movement, right? Most people sort of let that subject matter almost go in one ear and out the other, right? Um, but we're talking about something that will likely change the course of human history, the entire trajectory of where and what humanity is and what we're accomplishing or doing on this planet. We have, we now know of a group of or a cabal of people uh, who have obtained control over both uh, crashed UFOs, down, quote unquote, downed UFOs, or UFOs that have landed and just taken back off again. And then also various forms of and forms and levels of interaction between people and these beings or the pilots of these crafts. Okay, I'm cautious and pausing a lot because I'm trying and attempting to be careful about what I say and don't say. If you're catching my drift with this, um, but let's just say that we are rapidly surging toward a state and a level of awareness that is common spread, um, that denotes an incredible level of change, an incredible, not just like an uptick or so. I don't want to be remiss in expressing effectively enough how big of a deal this is for humanity on a whole, is what I'm getting at. We are talking about humanity's consciousness evolving to higher states of consciousness. This in itself is magnificent and not to be taken lightly. So, there are, so, okay, anybody who's taking a look, you will see that the activity on my YouTube channel has gone from robust to erratic to pretty much drop off of the face of the earth, right? They're literally, I'm getting like 7, 8 views on some videos, knowing that that is simply a matter of, the algorithm, right? Not allowing whatever new videos I'm publishing to be distributed to a wide number of people. I mean, essentially, that's how it works, and that's what's going on. But fear not, we're working on correcting that issue, and not even looking at it as an issue. It's just a flow, right? Um, and soon the flow will move robustly in favor of this information being more and more widespread, right? And that's what we're all after. And that's what we're after all, is the widespread of this knowledge and information, the widespread availability. Folks, this is all done out of love. All of it. I mean that from my heart. All of this is done out of love. Um, from individual one to another, individual to group, group to individual. This is about love, and humanity has got to evolve in unconditional love, right? We're taking steps to get there, and we just got a lot more work to go, lot more work to do, and that's all right. That's all right. We got here by working, toiling, struggling, straining, you know. Took a whole lot of trying just to get up that hill, right? We had to go in, and we have. Humanity has endured a great deal. Um, Much of it um, inflicted upon itself, right? Admittedly, um, but overall, the result I would say is heavily in favor of higher consciousness being the way of it. All right. All right, folks. I thank you tremendously. I love you all. We're going to, I know I was jumping around quite a bit, but there is such a large breadth of information that we need to cover. It can't be understated. So I'm going to work on trying to organize a little bit more, um, maybe even start every week on the podcast a set number of 3 topics, um, because I need to follow a certain level of progression, right? First, we'll cover this, then we'll cover this grouping of subjects, and et cetera, et cetera. So, thank you all for being with me today, this episode of Build with Big King. We got a long way to go, but we're moving in that direction magnificently. True indeed. I love you all. This is Big King Sadiq for Building with Big King, both on YouTube and Rumble. And I thank you. I love you all. Big King Sadiq.